Tonight, the Trump administration is cracking down on cartels at sea. The U.S. is planning to deploy these 3 warships near Venezuela.
2 dictators, 2 wars, one undeniable pattern. The entire world watched in 2003 as U.S. forces chased Saddam Hussein. The manhunt was relentless, the capture was definitive, and the image of him pulled from that hole changed history. But now the U.S. finds itself in Venezuela, deep in the hypothetical Operation Dia de la Caza, hunting Nicolás Maduro. The stakes are just as high. How does the hunt for the Venezuelan narco-dictator compare to the challenge of capturing the Butcher of Baghdad? Hello, I'm Mr. X Bogey, a U.S. Army combat vet and a former law enforcement officer. I've seen what it takes to track down high-value targets. Stick with me because there will be a lot of similarities when the U.S. begins tracking and finding the next fallen dictator. Let's start with the why. Saddam was removed under the pretext of weapons of mass destruction, a threat we now know was dubious. His true crime, in the eyes of the United States, was his defiance and control over vast oil reserves. The hunt for Maduro in 2025 is far more complex. The official pretext is humanitarian disaster, but the military reality involves 2 critical threats: oil and a full-blown narco state. Maduro's regime is a criminal hybrid state. It's not just about government loyalty. It's about criminal networks, cartels, and regional terror groups using Venezuelan territory. This means his hiding places aren't just palaces, but in the heart of organized crime infrastructure. This is a crucial difference. Saddam relied on fear and family. Maduro relies on a global black market economy. That makes the money trail much harder to follow.
The U.S. is deploying 4,000 additional troops to waters around Latin America. The Marines and sailors will be used to combat cartels, a focal point of President Donald Trump.
The Trump administration also recently doubling to $50 million its reward for the arrest of Venezuelan leader Nicolás Maduro.
They continue to send into our country, Venezuela.
Maduro uses foreign terrorist organizations like TDA, Sinaloa, and Cartel of the Suns to bring violence into our country. He is one of the largest traffickers in the world.
Now, the DEA says 30 tons have been seized from Maduro and his criminal network, 7 tons tied directly to Maduro himself. And the Justice Department says that is just part of this investigation.
Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum reacted to the news, saying interventionism is not one of the ways to solve conflicts. Along with the troops, a nuclear-powered attack submarine, several destroyers, and more are also being deployed.
Saddam Hussein's capture was complicated by a rapidly forming insurgency, mostly former Ba'athist. But Iraq is largely flat, open desert. It favors conventional military power and surveillance. Venezuela is like Vietnam. Its terrain, the dense llanos, the hilly, congested cities, the vast Amazon jungle, is tailor-made for guerrilla warfare and ambushes. Where Saddam had his Fedayeen, Maduro has the colectivos. These aren't just military loyalists. They're highly organized, hyper-violent armed gangs embedded deep within urban communities. They are funded by the regime and better armed than local police. For the U.S. task force, this means every vehicle patrol is an ambush risk. The fight is less about hunting a single man and more about dismantling a decentralized, deeply criminalized network operating in perfect cover.
Leonardo, José 8 Godoy.
¿De qué país vienes?
Venezuela.
¿Para dónde vas aquí en los Estados Unidos?
Arlington, Texas.
¿Qué país vienes?
Venezuela.
¿Para dónde vas aquí en los Estados Unidos? ¿Dónde?
Texas.
The hunters in both missions were the best the U.S. has. In Iraq, it was Task Force 121, a legendary team of Delta Force, SEAL Team 6, and CIA SAD agents. Their job was pure manhunt. In 2025, Venezuela, the unit is Task Force 709. They have all the same pedigree, but their mission profile is different. They're not just hunting a dictator. They're operating within a failed state, dealing with a dozen international players who might offer Maduro sanctuary. The biggest difference is the threat of an inner circle fracture. In 2003, the United States focused sanctions to encourage Saddam Hussein's allies to betray him. The reward worked, but Maduro's inner circle are so deeply implicated in crime, their exit costs are zero. They can't defect. For the United States, that means the only way out for Maduro's people is to cut a deal for their own freedom, not just money. This psychological warfare is harder than any bunker search. Think about the tech edge. In 2003, the Apache helicopters with advanced radar were revolutionary. The United States used early digital networks to communicate via tanks, cutting edge, but primitive now. In 2025, Task Force 709 is utilizing secure satellite quantum communication. They deploy swarm drones. They have facial recognition, and it is linked to the entire national ID database. And their signals intelligence is 1,000 times more precise. Paradoxically, this tech advantage is neutralized by Venezuela's collapse. When the power grid is out and the internet is dead, you can't track a cell phone. If Maduro goes truly analog, cash, human, couriers, remote hideouts, that high-tech surveillance is suddenly useless. The greatest intelligence tool in both cases remains the same, human intel. That leads us to the moment of betrayal. Let's take a look at Saddam's immediate evasion. After the fall of Baghdad, he vanished. The initial U.S. strategy was to raid his palaces and known luxury bunkers. This was the obvious path, and it failed completely. Saddam was a master of paranoia. He was always on the move, never staying in one location for more than a few days, sometimes moving every few hours. This constant movement burnt out his loyalists and created a high risk of detection. The vast amount of money he stashed away bought him a lifeline, loyal guards, and local protection. However, his opulence addiction was his downfall. He couldn't sustain life without certain conveniences. The ultimate similarity we will see in Venezuela is this: dictators can't outrun their own habits. They always retreat to what they know, what they trust, and what they secretly need. Maduro's evasion is more sophisticated. While he also disappears from Miraflores Palace, his safe houses are not traditional bunkers. They are part of the transnational criminal infrastructure he built. Instead of solely relying on tribal guards, Maduro relies on his deep ties to organized crime and foreign state assets who offered him protection years ago. His survival is a matter of geopolitics, not just geography. The United States task force focuses on the pressure points, capturing the financial lieutenants, the drug runners, and the oil executives who kept the entire criminal enterprise afloat. Cut the blood supply, and the body will eventually fall. The successful elimination of his inner circle in the Maracay raid sends the final message: Maduro cannot protect his people. This is the crack that leads to betrayal, just like it did in 2003 for Saddam Hussein. Saddam's manhunt went cold for months until they captured a key man, Mohammed Ibrahim Omar al-Muslit, codenamed The Source. Al-Muslit was Saddam's gatekeeper. He was captured in Baghdad, and within hours, he gave up the location of the Tikrit farmhouse. Maduro's source is hypothetical, but the dynamic is identical. Someone close to a security chief, maybe a family member, has to decide that the $50 million reward is worth more than their loyalty or their life. The key takeaway for hunting any future dictator is this: the massive bounty works. It weaponizes greed against loyalty. Once the chain of command is broken by money, the target is exposed. The captured individual, in our scenario, Maduro's chief of personal security, finally breaks. The place he gives up is not a fortified bunker, but a remote, simple farmhouse. Let's compare the final hideouts. Saddam fled to a small farmhouse near Tikrit, his ancestral home. This was logical. He was banking on deep tribal loyalty, the one place he thought U.S. troops would hesitate to search thoroughly. Maduro's final refuge is hypothesized, but to be near El Furrial, his own familial region. It's the same psychological move. Retreat to the place where your roots, your people, are the strongest. But the reality of the trap is the same. They both chose a non-obvious location that relied on personal bonds. For both Saddam and Maduro, they were banking on sentimental value, overriding the chaos of the state they created. The final operations, Red Dawn and Maduro's Dia de la Caza, are launched, thousands of miles apart, but following the exact same playbook. Secure the perimeter, isolate the target, and trust the intelligence. It's the dead of night. Task Force 709 moves on the El Furrial farmhouse. The guards flee. They are detained. The initial sweep of the humble dwelling finds nothing. Frustration reaches a boiling point. After all the intel, all the tech, they've come up empty again. But then a soldier, just like in 2003, notices something off. A patch of earth, a dirty carpet, a loose brick near the cooking area. Underneath is the signature hiding place of the dictator, the spider hole. A narrow, foul-smelling fiberglass-covered bunker. He is trapped in a space that reeks of decay and fear. In 2003, Saddam was alone. In 2025, Maduro is isolated, but his paranoia is the same. He knows the game is over. The moment of truth has arrived. Think about the fall from grace. Saddam, who lived in gold-plated palaces, is pulled from a 2.5-meter hole, filthy, disheveled, and smelling of sweat and dirt. Maduro's capture is a perfect mirror. He emerges from his hole in his own hometown, wearing clothes that reek of fear. He knows better than to resist. His first words are an offer to negotiate, a last grasp at the power that has already evaporated. This is the moment of psychological victory. The ultimate defeat of a dictator is not a grand battle. It is his pathetic, desperate surrender after months of cowering. The humiliation is the weapon. For the United States, the image is everything. The circulation of that photograph, whether it's Saddam or Maduro, immediately decapitates the insurgency's morale. The ghost is gone. The world cheers. The mission is a success. But this is where the comparison turns tragic. The capture of Saddam Hussein did not bring stability to Iraq. In fact, it arguably made things worse. The weapons of mass destruction that justified the war were never found. Credibility was lost. The power vacuum gave rise to Al-Qaeda in Iraq, and eventually ISIS. The war did not end, it merely changed. The same peril faces Venezuela in 2025. Maduro's criminal network is not solved by his capture. The colectivos and the drug cartels still exist. The economic devastation still exists. The ultimate success of Dia de la Caza depends not on who pulls the trigger, but on what happens the day after. If the United States cannot secure the country and solve the humanitarian crisis, they have traded one problem for a far more complex, multi-sided war. Saddam's trial was messy, controversial, and polarizing. It became a public spectacle designed to strip away his authority before his eventual execution in 2006. The trial was the final act of political theater. Maduro's trial is just as critical. The United States needs to prove that his removal is about justice, not just regime change. But the international scrutiny and the potential for a show trial will be immense. The pattern holds here. The dictator's downfall must be broadcast. It's the necessary symbolic message to every future strongman considering defiance. No matter how deep you dig, we will find you. But this legal process, while necessary, distracts from the humanitarian reality. The justice for a few doesn't solve suffering of millions. That is the tragedy of every post-dictator invasion. In both Iraq and Venezuela, the United States is successful in the decapitation strategy. They cut off the head, but the body, the criminal state, is still moving. In 2003, the Loyalists had a common Ba'athist banner to rally under. In 2025, Venezuela, the new threats are decentralized and more financially motivated. They don't need an ideology, just money. The biggest challenge for Task Force 709 is the lack of a clear enemy leader once Maduro is gone. They are fighting ghosts who are fighting for profit, not political power. That makes peace impossible. This is the lesson for the next fallen dictator. The United States military is guaranteed to catch you, but its capture is guaranteed to start a new, messier war. It's an endless cycle. The tactical victory of capturing a dictator is hollow if the strategic mission, lasting peace, is lost. Both Saddam and Maduro represent the same core challenge to a foreign invader. You can kill the head, but you can't kill the corruption or the ideology. So how does the capture of Maduro truly compare to Saddam's? It is faster, more high-tech, and focuses on crime networks rather than just military ones. But the risk of long-term instability is arguably higher due to the jungle terrain and the deep-seated narco-state structure. We are watching history repeat itself. The United States Army and the intelligence community prove they can track and capture any man, anywhere. But can they clean up the mess left behind? I want to know what you think. If you were running Task Force 709, what's the first thing you do the moment Maduro is in custody? Hit the comments below and tell me your strategy. The story of the fallen dictator is always the same. A powerful man reduced to hiding in a hole. That image is a warning to all future tyrants, but the lessons from Iraq are clear. Capture is not victory. It is simply the end of one chapter and the bloody beginning of the next. The hunt is over. The war is not. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more military analysis, and tell me your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.